And I don't like the noise of level of interjection either. Question number 3, Shane Ardern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
My question is to the Minister of Finance and asks, how is the government balancing its focus on responsibly managing its finances with addressing some of the most challenging social issues facing vulnerable families?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the government's been clear since it became the government that the 50% jump in government spending in the 5 years to 2008 was unsustainable. In setting a path back to surplus, we rejected the option of aggressively cutting spending. Instead, we took the time to understand the drivers of existing spending, whether the spending was delivering results, and to ensure that results were delivered. At the same time, we put significant resource and effort into improving the lives of the most vulnerable New Zealanders, particularly children. We're not doing that by throwing taxpayers' money around indiscriminately. We're attempting to resolve the complex and persistent problems that mean some of our children have lives that sap their sense of opportunity.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Shane Ardern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What are some of the social issues the government is addressing to improve the lives of most vulnerable New Zealanders?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the government has set out what it believes those social issues are, but more than that is publishing results in order that the public can hold us and the public service to account for achieving something for the most vulnerable New Zealanders. The Better Public Services targets are particularly challenging because they cover some of New Zealand's most persistent problems, like long-term welfare dependency, vulnerable children and the amount of violence that they suffer, the need to build skills and employment so these young New Zealanders have real opportunities, and also reducing crime and making our communities safer. Overall, we're making good progress towards meeting these results, and further updates will be published tomorrow.
A supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Shane Ardern.
What kinds of social issues affecting the most vulnerable New Zealanders did this government inherit in 2008?
That's right. Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there were a number of long-standing social issues making the lives of New Zealanders miserable in 2008. They're set out clearly in the Salvation Army's State of the Nation report of February 2008. It said the social outcomes achieved over the previous 5 years, that is under the previous Labor-led government, were somewhat mixed and in some areas quite disappointing. They noted that in 2008 more children appeared to be at risk of harm, more young people were engaged in petty crime, there was more violent crime, and the number of people going to jail was rising at a significant rate. I don't think any of those trends could be seen as progress. And the Salvation Army noted in 2008 that New Zealand households were chronically indebted.
Supplementary question, Shane Ardern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What else do reports say about serious social challenges facing New Zealanders when this government took office, and particularly the fiscal policy approach to dealing with those issues?
Honourable
Mr.
Bill
Speaker,
English.
the Salvation Army said in its report in 2008 that perhaps the most disappointing aspect was that New Zealand had invested huge amounts of money in core areas of social spending, but this spending seemed to have contributed very little to New Zealand's social progress. This wasn't the opposition spokespeople, this was the Salvation Army. It listed billions of taxpayers' dollars that had been spent and then listed many indicators that were going backwards. Rising numbers of referrals to SIFs, more children in SIFs care, rising youth offending, rising teenage pregnancy and abortion rates, continuing educational inequality and early childhood enrolment rates lower than 65%. Funnily enough, in 2014, almost all of these indicators are turning positive when the government has been very careful about its spending but instead focused on its effectiveness.
That's right. Don't like that.
Question. Is this a supplement? Point of order, Jacinda
In light
Ardern.
of the Deputy Prime Minister's line of questioning around the Salvation Army report, I seek leave to table a graph from the Salvation Army demonstrating an increase in child assault notifications.
The member will resume her seat. That report was certainly available to all members. Question number 4, Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Mr. Speaker, my question